As wartime munitions were also manufactured in Kettering, it's my good fortune to have the privilege of chairing this morning's debate. In a moment I'll be calling Mr. Reckless, and then it'll be Nia Griffith, Phil Wilson, Hugh Ranker-Davis and Russell Brown. I'm going to ask Mr. Perkins to start his speech no later than 10:40. So if you all pace yourselves, you'll all get in. Mr. Reckless.
Mr. Holloway, thank you very much indeed. I'm particularly interested to hear of your own constituency interest through Kettering and munitions manufacturer. I'd like to congratulate the honourable member for Stoke-on-Trent South. I think with the work that he has already done through the APPG and through securing this debate, I think he personally can take I'm not sure that credit is the right word, but pride in putting this issue on the agenda, and at least in this Parliament, giving that degree of recognition to the munitions workers he describes. I would like to add my voice, and I'm pleased to bring a cross-party element to this debate in support of what he's asking for. As he states, that any financial sum involved is, I think, fair to describe as de minimis in the scale of the contribution that these people made to our country. And it was, of course, David Lloyd George, as Minister for Munitions, who so strongly put this issue on the agenda when we look back to the years around 1915, and the extent to which the workers at the time had that profile. It is a great shame that with that profile and importance and what they did to win the First World War, but also, as he says, in different conditions, the contribute to winning of the Second World War, it would be very clearly a good thing if it were possible for them to get the recognition he seeks. And although it's perhaps a different minister than we might usually expect to give response, I think in terms of pushing discussions within government and once again putting this issue on the agenda and perhaps having it looked at with a fresh pair of eyes, I welcome the Minister that we have today to respond. Some of the constituency casework I do, two things have particularly struck me with medals and recognition for groups that perhaps haven't had that rightful recognition before. The response we had a few weeks back to the announcement of a medal for those involved in the Arctic convoys, I thought was very important. I also just had a constituency case where there was one gentleman who lived within in Cliff Woods, a village in my constituency, who had served at Suez and for whatever reason hadn't received his medal recognition that he should have done for serving in Suez. And it appeared, when my office pressed this issue, there was just a degree of confusion, and for one reason or another, his service had, say, fallen through the cracks, so to speak, within the Ministry of Defence, and actually we were able to give the firm evidence that he had served in Suez, and then that medal was awarded. But I just know to that gentleman that was a source of great pride, and was one of perhaps the particularly rewarding piece of constituency casework with which I've been involved. Now, in the constituency I represent Rochester and Strood and Medway towns more broadly. I'm not sure whether on the definition put forward by the honourable member that itself qualifies as an area, but what I do know, he mentioned Faversham, and also, of course, at Woolwich there's the Royal Ordnance, very, very large munitions manufacturer. And for people in my constituency, whether it's Rochester, Strood, Chatham Station is also within the constituency. It's within sort of half an hour travel to work, whether at Faversham or Woolwich, and I've no doubt that significant numbers of constituents for the area will at least have served in munitions in the past, and that perhaps a number of those are still alive and resident in the area. I'd also like to say, if I may, he very, very kindly said that there were issues of definition. I think understandably he and his group have settled on a clear definition, and I wish them very well in seeking recognition for people within that group. But I hope that he will not mind my saying that there are others outside that group. I think he himself drew attention to the people who worked on airframes, and in the constituency of Rochester and Street, we had Shorts Brothers based on the Esplanade in Rochester. It's all now more modern sort of housing with great sort of river views, but there's great pride in the industrial heritage of that area, and Shorts Brothers and the flying boats that were developed and manufactured at that site. Again, he drew attention to some of the movements in factories during the war, and I know that with Shorts Brothers in Northern Ireland, it may have been that because of the vulnerability of Rochester to German bombing, that may have led to a greater focus on Northern Ireland in terms of that manufacturer, but still that skills base that developed in Rochester of people who worked on those airframes, I believe does deserve recognition. Similarly, we had at the Royal Dockyard at Chatham many thousands of people who were military workers and to whom we owe a great deal both for the First and Second and indeed many other wars going back a number of centuries. And I think just as those who worked and particularly served in particular military campaigns have recognition through different medals and clasps, I would just like to associate myself and I believe my constituents with the call that the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent South has made. And I think people who did work and contribute in these roles, they too are deserving of recognition. And if it is possible for the government, even at this late stage, to give the measure of recognition that the Honourable Member seeks, that is something I would very much welcome.